I want, Mr. President, going forward, to ensure that budget planning process from day one involves the major stakeholders from the National Assembly. And let them work with the budgeting office and the national planning and budget. So that at the end of the day, all those gray areas are removed so that the budget will be a national budget. Now, let me finally end by telling you...
I beg your pardon, Odilim. Are you therefore saying that buying sewing machines and buying keke napep is more important to this nation than completing the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, which is the major road in this country?
No, I'm not saying that. But also, I'm not agreeing that Mr. President would have signed that budget. And I'm not agreeing that National Assembly members would have nothing for their constituents. I'm saying that Mr. President, as a leader of this country, as the #1 citizen of this country, would have reached out to them. Even when he got this on the 16th of May, he would have called the attention of the leadership of the House and the Senate and said, please, I cannot sign this. Please, can we negotiate? Within a week and thereabout, they will remove this keke napep thing you are talking about. But he has already signed it. Do you know, Mr. President has also committed something that could be called a crime, because he has signed it. So the keke napep. First of all, did he bring it to us 2 weeks before he signed it? Did he make a lot of Nigerians see keke napep and things like that are in the budget? You see, we have to be fair. I'm not against the president, but I'm not against the National Assembly. What is important is that even the Lagos, Ibadan you're talking about, it's a multi-year project. So a multi-year project has a percentage of the project cost that will be spent every year through the procurement plan you have. If Mr. President wants to spend more at that fiscal year, then the National Assembly will say, no, why are you going to spend more? Because the election is coming up, so that you show what you have done, that you have spent more money that actually you are supposed to spend. So you see, we have to understand these things. We have to look at the original procurement plan for all these projects, all these multi-year projects, to know whether he is underspending, is overspending. It's on that basis we can now analytically say that Mr. President is right or wrong, because we're very emotional about all these things.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mbarak. Honorable Namdas, the situation here, our guest here in Lagos, Iyore, talked about knowing the why, which will help to determine what we do and how we go about doing the things we do, knowing the why. Let's look at the timelines a bit. The budget was presented in the month of November, 7th of November 2017. The National Assembly passed the budget on the 16th of May. The president transmitted it to the president on the 25th. So he had some days in between that one will be wondering what the budget was doing still in the National Assembly. So he got to the president on the 25th. He signed it 25 days later on the 25th of June. Why this gap in between? And within that time, wasn't there a communication with the executive as regards some of those issues that were inserted into the budget?
Thank you so much for this very question. And I want to say that in the first place, the budget came in November. And if you can recall, it is public knowledge that as at 5 months after the budget has been presented, His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, directed the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to also direct chief executives of ministries and parastatals to appear before the committees of the National Assembly. Because when we cried out that the chief executives are not appearing, people thought we were joking. But later the president saw the need. So if after 5 months we have chief executives who have refused to appear before us, how could we have concluded with a budget as fast as people are expecting? That is one. Number two, even in April, 6 months after the budget was also brought, the executive were still presenting certain provisions that we should accommodate in the 2018 budget. And if we had not accepted it, the story will be that we are still trying to frustrate the government. We also decided to accept it in the spirit of working relationship. So we were still receiving submissions from the executive even 5 months or 6 months after the budget was presented because of the need at the time. And people were not coming forward to defend it. And so you can see the speed is not there. And there is something I want to clarify that I please with Nigeria to listen. The budget in Nigeria is not going to operate from June to December. The budget is for 12 calendar months. If you check Section 318 of the Constitution, it says it defines a budget cycle between January to December or any other date determined by the National Assembly. And the Appropriation Act is a law. So the law states that it's going to work for 12 months. If the 2017 budget that was passed in June, was signed in June 5th by the president, was not to live up to June, this same executive wouldn't have implemented the budget to the level it has reached because they started releasing funds in December. So it is not as if when the budget now is signed in June, it is going to end in December. It's going to end up till June next year. So nobody has delayed anything. The point is that it must remain for 1 full year.
Namdas,
and I think it is important.
If I may come in here, you made a couple of submissions which I think we should look at carefully. So you said in 2018 April the executive was still sending in input into the budget. The question to you is, did the National Assembly insert into the budget over 6,000 projects, contrary to that which had been put in there by the executive?
If you listen to my press briefing yesterday, or our press briefing with my colleague in the Senate, we said what was said was actually exaggerated because we have specifically mentioned that there are certain projects that they asked that we have caught. I give you an example. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is 20 billion. What was cut off was 2 billion. So you couldn't have said, if you cut 2 billion from 20 billion, that 2 billion is enough to stop the project of Lagos-Ibadan. It's not true. You cannot tell me that the second Niger bridge, which is 10 billion, and the National Assembly cut only 900 million. And then you said the 900 million cut from 10 billion will affect the implementation of second Niger bridge. It's not possible. You should realize that these things are specifics. We have mentioned them. It is something that is clearly seen. And therefore, it is important that, just like my colleague just said just now, that anytime there is a budget situation, there is need for us to have what is called pre-budget meeting between the executive and the legislature. Because it is only when we have pre-budget meetings, the executive will now say, this is our policy arrangement, this is what we intend to achieve in this year. And then the relevant committees of the National Assembly would have already been informed on some of these decisions. So by the time these budgets are coming into being, then it will be easy for the relationship. But I think what we have in Nigeria is that whatever comes from the executive, we do not have the constitutional powers to touch it. And by the time we touch it, people don't look at it from an objective point of view. If we look at it clearly, what we have done to say is that we have done what is constitutionally right. And for me to answer even the question that was earlier posed to the guest here, that why are some of these projects are said to be state projects? Let me clarify. I am not a lawyer, but lawyers are listening to me as I speak. That's what is called concurrent list. What is on the concurrent list can be worked upon by the federal government and the state. Where the federal government comes in, the state will even cease to leave us. Because that means the federal government supersedes the decision of the state. So we should understand that it's not everything in the budget that is an exclusive list.
Honorable, you gave us a few examples of little cuts you made here and there, and you say that people expect you to just rubber stamp everything that the president sent to you, and you're not expected to touch. You are expected to touch, but sometimes it does appear to Nigerians that the Senate only does that which is beneficial to it. Okay, you made those little cuts here and there, but we should also state that you increased the National Assembly's budget from 125 billion to 139 billion. So how can you blame Nigerians for thinking the way that they do?
Let me also come here. I think it is important that even for the media to be objective in their questions. Because we have stated clearly that it is not only the National Assembly that budget allocation was increased. We have increased in the 523 billion that was increased. We have added allocations to the health sector because there was a statement that the health sector was also cut by 75 billion. But this is the first time that we have added funds to the health sector because we ensured that the National Health Act that was enacted in 2014 is the first time that we say 1% of the consolidated revenue account should be about 500 billion should be added to the health account. We added that. We get money on the Niger Delta. The judiciary had 100 billion. The National Assembly added 10 billion to judiciary. It's not only the National Assembly.
Okay,
and then even the executive, there's a communication between...
Honorable Namdas, please just hold your thoughts. We'll be back in a moment to continue the conversation. Please don't go away.